The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is one of the greatest selling video games of all time. It's something I, as well as many others, return to religiously each year, because that game is infused with drugs.
The finest skooma, the sweet, each has their own way.
Why are you naked? But would Skyrim be as popular if it released today in the big 2026? The simple and obvious answer is yes, because Skyrim probably already did release this year, and last year, and the year before that. And now I could pose this question with a million different games, but the reason I choose Skyrim is because it's in such a unique position compared to anything else. Skyrim is still played so often by everyone. It's one of the best-selling games of all time. But people don't play Skyrim for how good the gameplay is or how technically polished the game is. Nor is it played for the thought-provoking writing or the deep, layered characters. It's in this extremely weird spot because usually a game has to have one of two redeeming qualities, whether that be the writing or the gameplay, but Skyrim has neither. And that is because the world and exploration carry so hard that nothing else really matters. And I get that the world is part of the writing, but that's besides the point. Skyrim is just this strange game and phenomenon where the entire product is carried by atmosphere and vibes rather than actual quality. The thing that keeps me personally returning to Skyrim all these years is that feeling of walking down a road by myself and looking up at the sky and seeing a beautiful, vibrant nebula. And I get this deep yearning to be inside this world, to live there. Please, Todd, do something. Let me in. The soundtrack by Jeremy Soule does so much heavy lifting. It's got this nostalgic and almost sad melancholy feel to it. It completely undoes the expectations of what we usually see in fantasy media, where there's these epic soundtracks and these choirs and loud noises. It's just very low-key and sad. And by the way, I'm basing this entire question of would Skyrim succeed in 2026 off just being a standalone game rather than being attached to the Elder Scrolls name or the Bethesda development studio. Just imagine it's a completely new original thing called Skyrim in 2026. Would it succeed? Would people like it? Anyway, let's continue. Skyrim was already outdated back when it launched in 2011, but the one thing it really had going for it, in my opinion, was that unparalleled level of freedom and exploration that it offered you from the get-go. We joke about that Todd Howard moment of,
"You see that mountain? You can go there."
All of this just works.
But I mean, it was true. You could go there. You could go anywhere. I feel like with a lot of modern RPGs, there's restrictions in one way or another that Bethesda games never really had. Bethesda always made it a point to allow the player to create any character they wanted, to talk to any NPC they saw on the street, and to enter any interior they saw, which we'll get to later. Another priority that Bethesda always had, and Todd spoke about it at some point, is that initial walkout moment after the first tutorial questline. That moment where you step out of the Helgen cave and the whole world just opens up to you. It's just this sprawling landscape that you can explore. The world is your oyster. And I think having that as a priority really tells you a lot about Bethesda and what they value in game design. They may not be the most competent on the technical side of things, but they clearly have a value of providing us, the player, with these strong emotions of stepping out into this new world that's ours hours for hundreds of hours. And I think that just really says a lot about them as a company. Something that was absolutely mind-blowing to me when I first played Skyrim, and that still is mind-blowing, is the fact that you can enter any interior in this huge open world. Any building that you see, you can go up to the door and you can enter inside into a fully furnished interior with potentially some lore in there or just a bunch of items for the taking. People love to talk about how Skyrim is so janky and technically underwhelming, and while I do agree with those sentiments a lot, I think people forget to mention stuff like that, like the ability to enter these interiors that are fully furnished, to be able to drop an item on one side of the map, go to the other side of the map, and when you come back, that item still persists. It's still there in the same spot that you left it in. But it's really hard to say whether people in 2026 would still value the things that Skyrim was really good at, like the open world and the freedom that it offers you, because I think in recent years, a lot of us do have this open world fatigue. People are asking for more linear and shorter games, like 8-hour long stories, and less of an open world, maybe more of an open zone type of thing, or just entirely linear. I wasn't around for that original Skyrim launch in 2011, but I have a very strong feeling that the open world was a much bigger selling point than it would be today. Back then, it used to be more of a crazy thing, like immersive games were still kind of in their baby phase, and Skyrim just came over and blew people's minds away. But we're in 2026 now, and I don't think people value that kind of thing as much. We want quality stories and fun gameplay. On the topic of gameplay, obviously Skyrim's combat was pointed and laughed at even back in 2011. The combat is just mind-numbingly boring. You're literally just tapping the trigger or the mouse down until your enemy health bar goes down. I think the skill tree is pretty good. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I enjoy the different skill trees because there is incremental stat bumps in there, but there's also new moves and abilities that you can unlock, which is very much appreciated. Anything but those skill trees where it's like 0.2 times damage or whatever, like that's just boring. It's interesting how a game can have horrible combat and gameplay in general, but people will still love that game more than their own families, because Skyrim was never about the combat. That was never the focus, not for Bethesda nor for the player. I think if you're playing Skyrim for the combat and for making a build, find a better game, please. I think with the exceptional run of games we've seen in the past few years, like Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring, standards have definitely gone up for open world RPGs. So it's hard to see a game like Skyrim releasing now and getting the same type of appreciation, because it's nowhere near the same level of quality that the other games are. But even though something like Baldur's Gate is technically and writing-wise much better than Skyrim, for some reason I rank Skyrim way higher. And I know it's not nostalgia, because I return to this game constantly and I still have a blast with it. Even though our standards have gone up for what quality a game should be, modern Bethesda likes, like the Outer Worlds 2 or Oblivion Remastered, still have like really bad combat and really bad gameplay in comparison to other games coming out. But despite all that, we still enjoy those games. Bethesda kind of set a precedent back in the day where the gameplay just doesn't matter. It just does not matter, and people will still love those games because it's never been about that. And I know I keep repeating that, but that is the whole point of this, that Skyrim is a product of its time. It's janky, it's technically kind of just bad, but we still return to it constantly. I still play vanilla. I'm not always playing modded. So with all that gameplay spiel out the way, I wanted to talk a little bit about the writing and the main story of Skyrim. I may be the only person on Earth that you will hear say this, but I don't think the Skyrim main questline is that bad. I still don't think it's great, and it's very forgettable, but the writing itself is like interesting enough to keep me hooked. I think I just appreciate Elder Scrolls main quest lines because they take you through the history of Tamriel and the kind of like stuff that happened within it. I think the stuff with Alduin and Sovngarde is just naturally interesting to me, but this is by no means a good story at all. It's just passable. I do think a lot of people nowadays can be very forgiving of bad writing, and I'm gonna use Elden Ring as an example, not because the story is bad. I think it's genuinely amazing. It's just that it's so low-key that most people play the game without ever knowing what's going on, and literally no one has ever really complained about Elden Ring's story because the gameplay and the world are just so good that most people are pretty content with just not learning about that. And while Skyrim's story is a lot more out there and, you know, there's actual like dialogue and stuff to follow, I think a lot of us would just be content with exploring its world and kind of putting the writing to the side. It's funny because whenever Bethesda games get brought up, I make it sound like I have no standards for what a good game is to me, but trust me, if you've seen my channel before, you know I can be very critical about all sorts of games. I can also be very nitpicky, but it's weird because every time it's Bethesda, it's like I lose 50% of my brain cells talking about it. Like, I'm okay with bad writing, I'm okay with bad combat. Bethesda to me is just genuinely in a league of its own, or used to be. After Starfield, I don't really place them that high up anymore, but their older games are definitely just so special to me, and they're one of one. They're one of a kind. The faction quest lines are also there if you're into that kind of thing, and while they also aren't great, I think something else that attracts people to Skyrim is the fact that each playthrough can be unique. It's a new thing, a new experience. Every time you start up that new character, you've got an idea in mind for what you want to be. If you want to join the Thieves Guild or the Dark Brotherhood, or maybe try out the Mage College, or even the Bard College. And Skyrim is so big that even after hundreds and hundreds of hours, I don't think I've seen everything. I think I'm actually not even close to having seen everything. There's still armor sets that I haven't tried to get before. There are Daedric quests that I have not done. And I think that sort of surprise factor is something that's still hugely valued in gaming even today. I made a video a few weeks ago on Crimson Desert and the exploration. I spoke about the kinds of weird things and landmarks I found just randomly and organically out in the world, and I'm still thinking about those because there's just something about seeing something you haven't seen before that just kind of stays with you, and Skyrim just has an overabundance of that. I think it's safe to say that Skyrim doesn't have the quality that we expect from a AAA game, but it makes up for that with the wide range of content that it does have. You can become a vampire hunter in Dawnguard, or you can go to a completely different island in the Dragonborn DLC. So, would Skyrim be popular if it came out in 2026? I do not think so, but I also don't think it would be a complete flop. I think it would have this middle ground of having a cult following that deeply appreciates the stuff about it. Take something like Tainted Grail, which you may or may not have heard of. It has a really, really loyal following that absolutely adore that game. They say it's one of the best Bethesda-likes to have ever come out. It's a better version of a Bethesda game. But the point is, not a whole lot of people have heard of it. It's out there, it's popular, but it's not common knowledge. It's not a household name. And I think if Skyrim was to launch in Big 26, it would be in the same situation. I believe that the Bethesda formula has been growing stagnant for a lot of people. We're getting all these genre-breaking RPGs, and if you take something like Starfield, it seems very underwhelming in relation to some of the masterpieces we've gotten recently. Bethesda games have kind of just ran their course now, and the Bethesda likes we receive nowadays are less of a global phenomenon like they used to be, and more of a dedicated niche audience type of deal. That's pretty much all from me though. If you watched to the end of the video, I want you to comment Todd down in the comments. I hope you have a great day/night. I'm gonna clock out now. See ya.